What's going on, brother? Let's see, you muted there. Right.
How you doing, brother, this evening?
Hey, man, I am doing fantastic. Appreciate you asking, man. Bruh, how has your week been? I think it's been a couple weeks since we've seen each other. How's it been?
Man, it's been awesome. I was keeping you updated a little bit on what we're doing here at my building. You know, I'm trying to purchase the building that I'm in and really trying to move forward with this 5-year plan with my company. So, you know, it's really, I was just listening to, I do Leonard talk about real estate, and it's kind of becoming my alley coming up soon. So I'm a student about real estate.
Hey, man. McDonald's set the trend. You know what I mean? McDonald's set the trend, man. Everybody thought they was in it for the toys and the burgers. Nah, bro, they in it for the real estate.
In it for the real estate. Yeah.
Absolutely. I tell you, I had a scare yesterday, bro. It was I had a scare, and it's interesting because okay, I'll tell you what happened. I'm being a little vulnerable right now. I utilized the restroom. I took a leak, and it was neon yellow, and I was scared. I was like, "What in the world is going on?" Only to do a little Google and realize that those B vitamins that I took is what that's all about, man. I had one left B vitamin in one bottle, and I had bought a whole new bottle of B vitamins. And so I ended up taking both of those. And the new bottle, I think, is probably maybe 100 milligrams or something like that, I think. And the other one was 50 milligrams, a little bit more than normal. And man, it came out neon yellow, like Mountain Dew. I was like, what the heck is going on? But little research, man, and I was back in the mix, like, okay, all right, this isn't that bad.
That's exactly what it's supposed to do. Yeah. Everything was normal.
Yeah. I was one level search away from giving you a call, bro. To be like, hey, bro, is this? What's going on? But hey, man, we got a fantastic show today, man. This is all about masculinity versus femininity. We're just, having a great conversation. That's what this is all about. This isn't about fighting or trying to point fingers. This is just about having good conversation about things that I feel like we all should talk about. So as we move forward, everyone should just, enjoy yourself. If you're out there in YouTube land, in Facebook land, and potentially here in a minute in Instagram land, then, hey, tell us what you think. And, you can comment actively through this live show. All right. And like and share and all that good stuff. Okay. So with that in mind, then without further ado, we'll start bringing up some of our guests. And as we start the ladies, like I said, without further ado, we'll bring up the ladies with their due. You know what I mean? All about that femininity. First to the stage, folks, we'll make sure we bring Miss LaQuisha Moore. Sis, how you doing? Uh-oh. She's doing good, but she disappeared on us. It's all good. We're gonna go ahead and is she back? Let's see. I think she's back. There we go. Hey sis, you there? Quisha?
Can you hear us?
I don't think she can hear us.
She's not muted. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
No, we can't hear you. Okay, so she's gonna go and come back in. To the stage, we got her sister from another Mister, the other half of the Titty Powwow show, where they talk about went throughout history that have done some great things. A recent show that was fantastic, where they talked about Whitney Houston and some of her accolades. And they got a few of these shows coming up, folks, very soon. So you definitely want to check them out. This is Joni Lancaster. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys?
Awesome. Can you hear us good?
I can hear you both.
Great.
All right, fantastic, doing great. Let's see if we can get Miss Moore back up to the stage. Sis, are you there?
Can you hear us?
I think she can hear us.
It looks like it's on mute.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, but I don't think she can hear us.
She can hear us.
What's happening?
Hey,
Somebody should text and see if she can. She got some AirPods or something that maybe is picking up her connection. Every time she tries to come on. We'll go ahead and bring to the stage another sister from another Mr. Queen Jesus Muhammad. Sis, how you doing there?
Good evening. How y'all doing?
We are awesome.
Fantastic. We are awesome.
All you beautiful faces.
hello, Queen.
Absolutely.
Hello. It's a beautiful panel.
I think LaQuisha's still having issues.
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So be working on that here in a second. Oh, there she goes. We can hear her on the new
Can
one.
you hear her now? Can you hear us? Oh, she may have to close out and come back. Can you hear us?
I did.
Boom, there it is.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I tried to switch y'all to. I shouldn't have did that right before the show, but I tried to switch y'all to my other device. Sorry.
Yeah, sound check and everything, and we go through all, and then all of a sudden, you know what? I got a great idea. Boom.
Self-sabotage.
That's all good. It's all good.
All right,
we can talk about that part too.
I'm trying to get more light, but that's okay. How y'all doing?
We
It's
are
all
awesome.
good. The radiant light skinness is through.
And Joe, your voice is kind of choppy.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. So, F spectrum. That's what about. That's what I'm dealing with. Is spectrum.
That's my excuse too.
Okay, break to the stage, brother Diego Denson. How you doing there, family?
Can you hear me? No, I'm joking around.
You did that on purpose.
Oh man, everybody, can you hear me? I'm glad to be here. Happy Sunday, brothers and sisters.
All right. It's good to have a comedian in the mix, always. Brother Leonard Walker to the stage. How you doing there, family?
All right. My mic sounds nice. Check one. My mic sounds nice. Check two. There we go.
There we go.
Here you go.
We hear you loud, brother.
All right. So, I tell you what, we got a great show today, and I kind of want to move it in a particular direction. And Miss LaQuisha Moore helped me with some of that. So let me definitely give credit where credit is due. We were talking about, kind of focusing on topics specifically and such like that, and see how we can kind of move this conversation. But we want to, in the mix of all of this, we want to define masculinity and femininity universally versus culturally. That's kind of some of the goal here. Gender roles and influences behind those roles, how we balance them out within ourselves based on our reality, having to be breadwinners and homemakers, how we balance them out in relationships with others, maybe, like thinking about the percentage of masculine and feminine energy you want in a partner. That might be a question to pose to the ladies versus the fellas. How much masculinity do you want in your mate? Versus ladies, how much femininity or masculinity do you want in your mate? So I think that's a good question to go over just the same. But I got things that I want to show you guys.
Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Are you there?
No, she's chopping up also.
Okay. Let's see. Queen, do you have your Wi-Fi on or off? You know, because that could be that. I mean, that's usually my first two in that.
Hey, you know I'm not a technocrat. What you mean Wi-Fi on or off?
There you go.
Do I need to go into my settings?
Well, it's just if you have Wi-Fi at home, then I would cut it on the phone. If you don't have Wi-Fi, but your Wi-Fi is on your phone, then
well, I'm on my laptop. So
okay, got you. Okay, all right. So you're definitely connected to Wi-Fi, I assume. So you just made it with the ills of spectrum that I'm dealing with, possibly. But it's all good, folks. We're gonna push our way through the show just the same. I kind of want to do a round robin real quick. Let everybody kind of talk about what it is that they do, they bring, and what they feel bring to the table with this conversation. So let's see. When I do this, it probably, I don't know if it looks different, to the people online or not, but I'm trying to point to my person next to me, and that's LaQuisha Moore. So and then go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you feel you bring to the table.
Well, I feel like I'm definitely a woman, so I bring that to the table, and I think I bring a clinical perspective to the table as being, a therapist, being a single parent, so like having to take on two roles, well, not really two roles. Kids have their dads, but having to be solely responsible for being the breadwinner and the homemaker. So, and I'm a Libra, so you know what I'm saying. That's balance right there.
we can go ahead and jump on with Brother Ya, and you speak about yourself and what you feel you bring to the table. I see eyebrows raised when she said Libra, so I'm kind of curious. Does that mean something, or
it means a lot?
Think something, Brother Ya?
Yes, sir. Okay, so as not only as a co-host on this show, which is what I bring to this show, I'm also a business owner. What can I say? I'm also a former marriage counsel back in the day. I am well versed in the psychology of men and to understand men. I do tutor and have helped a lot of men straighten out their lives coming out of prison. That's one of my things that I do, along with working with certain attorneys on certain cases that comes to my lap, on criminal cases, that is. So basically what I bring to this table is to talk about masculinity, what it looks like. And for the brothers on that side is what he's looking for in a woman. In other words, when a brother says he's looking for a wife, and then balancing with what he's looking for along with a masculine woman. Like, I believe that, of course, all women have a masculine trait. It's a beautiful thing to have. And so I definitely bring to the table to that discussion, because I raised a daughter and she's not masculine, but she's well versed. So
that's what's up. Brother Diego Denson, what's on your mind there, sir? What do you feel? You're a well-traveled person.
Yes, sir. So that's what I was going to say. I've had a chance to work in communities globally, and I've done a lot of work with boys and girls clubs. I've worked with a lot of parents that needed assistance with helping with their kids. being that I've also been a world traveler, I've lived in different countries. I've definitely had a chance to seek counsel from older men and older women about relationships and dating, and also I've been groomed by quite a few people in different leaderships, organizations to lead organizations and other folks. So I think I bring that perspective, similar to what Mr. Yah said about what I hear when I speak to men and women, and in particular, Black men internationally, not just Black men in the United States, of what they seek in a wife and some of the feedback I've heard from these gentlemen. So I think I'm going to bring that perspective today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Queen Aziza Muhammad, sis, a lot of us know, but for people that don't, you can tell about yourself and what you bring to the table, sis.
Well, being the fact that I'm almost 60 years old, being the fact that I have been a marriage counselor, family counselor for 35 years thus far, I'm the administrator of a juvenile detention facility, um, and I am an advocate for the maintenance of our Black history here in America and abroad. Um, been a radio show host for, mm, I think this is our 15th year um, doing blog talk. So um, hopefully, you know, I have something to offer. I pray.
Well, you definitely
Oh,
bring.
and I also co-authored Uncle Mishorn's book. I forgot to add that to my resume.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, definitely on that
Mhm.
spell check there. So we appreciate you, sis, and you definitely bring experience to the table as well. Uh, Miss Lancaster, Joni Lancaster, sis, tell us about yourself and what you bring to the table. You are a artistic professional and deal with a lot of different people, and definitely a talk show host as well. Tell us a little bit about you.
Um, my name is Joan Lancaster. I am a woman. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. Um, I do work in a predominantly female beauty industry, so I come in contact with a lot of females, and I think I have a lot of experience just dealing with women, and just my own experiences. I call myself a student of life because we're always learning and growing, and you can learn anything from anybody that you come in contact with. So um, I'm just here to soak up everybody's perspective and kind of hear different things, and then just kind of. I'm also an Aries, so I will say the thing about Aries women is we are very dominant. We're very I don't know, like
Right.
leaders, very strong of the signs and very masculine. So I think it's not just, in me because of how I was raised, but also it's like, innately in me. So yeah, but I just am
Awesome.
here to share.
Awesome. Brother Leonard, next up, sir.
How you doing? How you doing? How's everybody doing? My name is Leonard Walker. I am a husband. I am a father of an adult son. I am. I've been divorced. I've had a child out of wedlock. I've gained custody of my son. I was a deadbeat. I've the whole spectrum. I am quintessential to this conversation because I've experienced pretty much all of it. So, like I said, it's right now. I'm currently a husband. I'm retired. I'm a neighborhood. I consider myself a community or neighborhood father. That means if your children are out in the street doing stuff, I'm gonna see them, and they will see me. Okay. I also mentor grown men as well, who've not had fathers. Um, a matter of fact, there's a lot of grown men, consider me their father, their pops. That's what they call me. So, so that's what I bring is that father, that husband, that son, that man. to the table.
Absolutely, absolutely. So appreciate it, folks. We're gonna go ahead and move this show forward and get it started, and let y'all get into it. Let us get into it. You know, we got some questions to pose and things of that nature. But first up, remember it is the Tipping Point Morning Show.
You are listening to The Tipping Point Show with your host, Mr. Just Ask Joe, John Yeah. You ready? Streaming live all over social media and on your favorite music and podcast streaming platforms.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Also, check out thetippingpointshow.com. The Tipping Point Show.
I don't even know what's going on. Oh my god. Oh my god. Are you guys kidding me?
All right, folks. We are back. Hopefully, we are having some decent sound. A lot of us are pissed off at Spectrum, and I don't mind saying Spectrum many times as it takes until they get themselves together. We'll probably happen. Fiber optics is the new move. With that in mind, folks, it's Mr. Just Ask Joe, and I feel as though I bring to the table the ability to bring a bunch of people together and have conversations. All right, the other half of the Tipping Point Morning Show with Brother John Yah, then we have wonderful conversations all the time, and sometimes we have, and the show is so great, and we say to ourselves, how in the world can we top that? So what we do is we go and we grab a bunch of astute individuals. You see that, Brother Leonard? I use that astute. That's the boy's favorite word. We grab a bunch of other astute individuals, and we bring them to the table and have great conversations. So first, as we look at things, I think one of the things we were trying to hit on last week or 2 weeks ago, as we had this conversation, was to define masculinity and femininity universally versus culturally. And when I say that statement, there's something that I wanted to say last show that I didn't get to say because I just kind of forgot. But it came from Queen Muhammad. She said something very profound one day. She said that women set the tone in any society. All right. And so she said women set the standard in any society. So, I kind of want to, as we talk about defining masculinity and femininity universally versus culturally, let's kind of start there. And I would love for Queen to kind of jump on that comment that she made as we revolve down defining masculinity and femininity universally versus culturally. If the woman sets standard in any society, then how does that work as we're defining masculinity and femininity universally versus culturally? Queen, I know that's kind of loaded.
Traditionally, women do set the standard in any society because traditionally men are in pursuit of women. Women don't traditionally pursue men. And so if a woman holds herself to a higher standard, then there's a higher standard that a man has to reach to obtain that woman. Now, when you factor in some things that are not cultural, it's not religion, some things are political. Some things are some things were created to divide us. Now, when I say us, I'm talking about us with melanin, okay? in this society. So in this Western hemisphere, there were a lot of things that brought our traditional behaviors and cultures to a halt. And the one thing that slavery did, if you want to say slavery, whole takeover of the African nation did, is that in the development of an educational curriculum for us, there were three things in particular that they took out of that curriculum. And not only did they take it out of the structure educational curriculum, but they took it out of the social curriculum. So, Black men and women in America were never taught the science of business. We were never taught the science of war. And we were never taught the science of mating. Why? Because they know from our skills, from our history, from just going to Africa and seeing the value and the developmental skills of us, that if we came together in those three categories, then they feared a takeover. So when it comes to the science of mating, that was done on purpose to create a social disruption between Black men and Black women. And it started way down in the islands with that man, Mr. Willie Lynch, who educated slave owners in how to a slave, how to a slave, how to break a slave. And so when people, they talk about the brutality and all that, the hangings, the lynchings, the burnings, but let me tell you what went on some plantations sexually. So everybody hears about how the man was dragged out of the house. He was beaten and burned and brutalized in front of his woman. And, she didn't look at him like a man anymore. But what they left out is that a lot of those men were sexually abused in front of women. And of course, we women, we didn't look at you the same. So I would say the onset of open homosexuality is also manufactured in this country. So there were a lot of things that disrupted the natural social order. When I say that a woman sets the standard, you know how your mama and them used to tell you a man only gonna do what you let them do? And so I tell women all the time, I say, if you lower your skirts, you raise the standard of men. Because now we're living in a sexual society. The music is sexual. The television programming is sexual. Your movies, everything that is visual to you, auditory to you, has a strong sexual content. This is our music. This is our entertainment. This is what we are exposed to. And so now genders have changed. I don't want to say diminished. I'm going to say they've changed. And that's because it's manufactured and we have become victims of that. So back in the day when they didn't have television, you know how your man used to come over, used to court you, used to bring you flowers, ask your daddy for permission, sit on your porch all night, didn't get none till you got married. That's out the window. But that was a standard, and it was to protect the woman. Because when people look at a society, when they look at a culture, when they look at a race, they look at the woman, because they look at how well that woman is cared for, which shows how much men respect and protect their women. So when you look at white women in their natural, so-called natural element with their husbands, or whatever, that woman feels protected. The Hispanic people, those that are married, they feel protected and respected by their mates. Look at us and look at the Asian people, Asian married people. Mm-mm. They feel respected and protected. What happened to us? And it's all by design. There's a warfare against us on every aspect of life, including our social order, including how we mate, including how we do business, including in how we participate in war. And it's not war as far as like, you know, like World War or anything like that. It's the
Mhm.
war of being able to be an equal opportunity individual in this society. Because when you go to
Absolutely.
Africa, when you go to Australia, when you go to South America, this is not even an issue. There's no such thing as femininity versus masculinity, even amongst the single women household, because uncles and brother-in-laws and cousins of the male, sex step up into the families. It's not even a question about who is going to take on the male role, but it's only, and maybe not only, but it's a lot of us that are
So,
lacking
um,
support. Say, oh,
absolutely.
but she's
So,
masculine. No, she's not masculine.
I mean, and I want to dig into that, Queen. As we talk about this, that's the thing. Brother Diego brings it up because he's an international traveler, travels everywhere, and he travels many different ways. Sometimes he takes a submarine to work. Sometimes he sometimes he'll
Wow.
jump a jet fueled bicycle to go to work because he just has toys and stuff to play with. Um, I'm just playing with. With that in mind, as we dig into that, Brother Diego talked about that how in countries they don't have this issue as much. And if anybody wants to address this, do y'all think that it has more to do with the Western media propaganda that has us here in America kind of at war with each other, and that's a thing because maybe there's money to be made on it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I mean, is that the big thing, Brother Diego? What you think?
I think it's extremely profitable for two people to have to live separately in two different households, paying the same amount of income to the people that are running their communities, and they're usually not the people that look just like them. I grew up in Harlem, New York City, and in Harlem, they try to make a lot of the communities nowadays be somewhat owned by some of the people that look black, if they're West Indian or African. But even then, you see, even in Harlem, in a black city, black community like that, where tons of people are coming in and they're starting to, gentrify it, right? And they're moving people out, or they're up charging on the rents, and they're being landlords that are not, being affectionate to the people that actually provide that community. So I think a lot of times it is somewhat to what the sister was saying earlier, that there could be a lot of forces that are trying to create this war. But my bigger question that I would love for her and other women on the panel to say, if that is the case, and it could be, how do we win that war? Because if it's a war front and people are against us with these different measures, how do we win it? Because if our history serves me right, there was slavery in a lot of these other communities prior to coming to America, like the Haitians and stuff like that. And when I'm there, even though they have really bad economics, I still see a great dynamic between the man and the woman. So I'm more curious to know, like, I believe there are forces, but how do we win this war? What's the solution to fighting against some of these forces that are trying to tear a division between the black men and black women in America? Anybody?
Well, first of all, we got to be aware that it exists. And I think that there's just still a war on us socially in America, period. Like she's saying, um, I think that you may not see that in when we talk about slavery in other places. You don't see that because the extent of the brutality and the degradation of slavery in America is a little different than other places. But also, I think that we have to stop assuming that all women and all men have to be the same. Like a woman's supposed to be this, that, and the third. A man's supposed to be this, that, and the third. And I think that that's where we're judging each other. Like we've come to a point where we truly judge each other. And I mean, it's hard to get on one accord when two people are, even a society of men and women are like judging each other's basically response to being traumatized.
Which sounds like that's the propaganda piece. That's the marketable piece. That's the thing that's being done that pits us against each other. Something Queen said that I thought was interesting just now. She said lower skirts and in lower skirts they raise the standards of men. And brother, yeah, you've kind of hinted at in a way. You may have said it a little bit different, to where if we could focus the women in our society to raise, I guess, the standards among, and that would, since men, are hunter gatherers, since men chase women, it would change the outlook of men. Because when I look around, even women who speak about, the positivity of femininity and things of that nature, in this day and age, women that's very scantily clad, and call it feminine, and call it feminine energy, and call it all these things. But when you boil down to it, it's very scantily clad. But then again, you look in the UK, and nudity is everywhere, yet they have lower sex crime rates than we do in America, right? I guess kids grow up knowing what stuff looks like, so they're not trying to creep under stuff to see. I don't know. But with in mind, yeah, I'd love to hear from you in the moment as to what you've heard so far, into the idea of defining masculinity and femininity universally and culturally. You're on mute, brother.
Did you refer that to me? You got chopped up a little bit.
Yes, sir. My apologies. That is for you.
That's okay. One of the things I think that in order to really understand where we are in this society, not comparing this society to any other society. Let's just look at this society. So first of all, how do we define a masculine woman? What are the traits? What are the traits of a feminine woman? Can we define the traits and what that looks like? If we can define it, then we can discuss where the problem is. Because I think we're trying to discuss where we're trying to say women today are too masculine. If so, what does that mean, and how do we define it? Because that becomes the hidden elephant in the room when we're talking about masculine women. How do we define it? First of all, because that's the piece where men can only answer if a woman, if we define what is too much for who. It can't be too much for the woman. So it has to be something saying that the men don't like a masculine woman. And it could be for many reasons. It could be because he's intimidated. It could be because he's, it could have a whole lot of reasons to why certain men are intimidated or feel inferior of a masculine woman. So, but we have to first define it. Let's first discuss what defines a masculine woman. What does that look like?
Well, I had a conversation last night with a girl and a guy, and we were kind of having this conversation, and they kept talking like about, because they work out, or because they look like this, and I'm like, it's not what's on you, it's what's in you. It's not about how you dress. It's not about going and working out all the time. It's how you move. I feel like the masculinity is decisions you make, the way you interact with other people, the way you move in this world is what can make you masculine. But for me, I guess using that it can be a problem, I want to know why is too much masculinity a problem? I feel like what one person embodies may not necessarily work for this man, but for another man, he might appreciate the masculinity in a woman, or the masculinity in that woman might just be for another woman. It might not even be for the man to appreciate or to even have an opinion on, because she's not for him. So I think for me, everybody's their own individual. And I think it's just trying to get people to work with each other versus trying to, like LaQuisha said, tear people apart or pick people apart as to why something too masculine can be taken into like a negative connotation.
Well, just to comment on that, I think, and I'd said this before, is you have men that are into women who are physically fit.
And I think that's the part that we have forgotten about, is that we forgot about individualism. Can y'all hear me?
Yes. We want to let Brother Leonard finish his statement there. Go ahead, Brother Leonard.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Like I was saying, I think, and it goes back to what. Oh, she's okay. It goes back to what I said last week. Is you have some men that are attracted to what women, physically fit, athletic women. Okay, and some men would say, "Oh, well, that's masculine." Some men like a woman that takes charge. Okay, some men don't like that. All right, but I think the crux of what we're looking at when we talk about what makes a woman masculine is a woman that is competing in the same space as a man is competing. All right. When we look at, this economic system, these jobs out here, right? You have women now competing in the white collar space that men are competing in. All right. Men are threatened by that. Now, women don't really compete in the blue collar space. Men still dominate that. Right. But what you have is the blue collar space is not intellectual enough. Okay. So that's the knock against, these guys right here. You're not red. You're not intellectual enough. You just a grunt. You're just a blue collar worker. But yet and still, a lot of blue collar jobs, make more money than white collar jobs. See, so we look at this hunting and gathering and providing. Okay, women are now in the same space as a lot of men, and men are threatened by that. And I believe, like I said, is and what to credit what Queen is saying is, instead of being people who cooperate or collaborate with each other, what the system has done is turned us into competitors. Okay. And if you have men and women competing with each other, then whomever the powers that be that want us to be divided, they win, because that is the real deal right there. Is if you can get men and women competing, then they don't have to really worry about, any type of successful group of anybody doing anything, because they're too busy competing with each other. See, so like I said, is that's where, I think the unspoken, what makes this woman masculine, because like I said, is you got men out here that like other men to dress up like women. All right, let's just be real. Okay, so a person's taste, what they look like, what turns them on, I don't think that's it. I think it's you competing, you taking food off of my plate. Okay. That sort of mentality. So that's just my thought about it.
Okay.
And
okay.
I agree 100%, but you have to understand. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Queen. No, go ahead, Queen.
Oh, okay. No, what I was saying is that all of that is done by design. It's not something that we as women ask for. And I think we also forget about individualism. I'm not like any other woman on this panel, and no other woman on this panel is like me. We have our different preferences of what we like, what we dislike, and that's personal. But when the whole argument of feminism versus masculinity came up, it was about jobs. It was about opportunity. It was about seeing women being innovative and active in spaces, just like Leonard said, that they had never been before. But also understand this, that there have been situations, and there are situations still today, where men will go in and apply for a job, a black man, but when they had what they call it, what was it, where they had to
Affirmative
hire
action.
a minority. So
Affirmative action.
killing two, yeah, affirmative action. They were killing two birds with one stone. They were hiring a
Yep.
female and they were hiring a person of color. Then that sparked something else. Because if we can keep this black man from being economically successful, we can keep the black woman where we want her. They will put a woman power in America, hospital administration, construction companies, city government. They will put a black woman in power before they put a black man in power, because that is not something that white men who run this country, who run this world, want to see. And Claude Anderson said it many, many years ago. And if you look at this country today, that white people have always said that they're the minority, right? That's what they say. Then here you got the Asian people. Now you have the Spanish people. We at the bottom of the totem pole, because the lighter your skin is, the brighter your future becomes. That's just real. So this disruption of social order amongst us did not start with us, but it affected us all the way back to Roosevelt and his New Deal. I'm going to feed
Right.
your woman. I'm going to feed your children. But you, as a black man, got to get out there on them streets. And I don't care how you eat. I don't care if you eat. I don't care if you have shelter. It was all about taking control of the black woman and her children. Because guess what that black woman's going to tell her black son? Her black son better bow down, keep his head down, be quiet, so that you won't end up like your daddy on the streets. This was when this happened, right after the stock market crashed. Don't you know that in New York, over 546 men froze to death because they were not allowed to live in the housing projects where their women and their children were housed? That they were running in there with police, beating them, hanging them, burning them in New York, just for being on the property of their children.
Let me redirect this
This
for
is
just a
the
second.
so-called welfare system.
Sister Queen,
So this has been going on for
can you hear
years.
me?
But now, yes,
Let
yes, I'm
me.
sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to go
I get
around.
long-winded. Cut me
Gotcha.
off.
It's okay. That's okay. I'm still in the area of trying to define too much masculinity in a woman. Can anybody else? I think Joni made a good
I
point
think, yeah,
about.
men should, with what you're saying, y'all, go ahead. But I think that is a question. Maybe we can start with men and do a round robin. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, so we're still trying to define what is too masculine, and this is where we need to be discussing. So, in other words, how we define it, what comes from a man's lens, not from a woman's lens. So, in other words, how we define what is too masculine will come from a man's lens, not from a woman. I give you an example. Women, would in y'all viewing of men, do you view to date a man that is masculine or feminine?
Ladies?
I'm definitely gonna go for the masculine man.
Okay. What about Sister Brown Skin? T, how you doing?
Hi. I may not have much of a voice. I'm definitely gonna go for masculine men also.
Okay. Joni Lancaster.
I prefer a more masculine man.
Okay. Sister Queen, I already know your answer. Okay. You wanna can you hear me? We got a delay.
Yes, yes.
No, not really. I prefer a masculine man that's in touch with his feminine side. And
Got you.
and the
Got you.
only brother that I can think of that would be a perfect example would be my brother, my late brother Prince Rogers Nelson. was a perfect example of that.
Right, gotcha. So when we're talking about this, the reason why I made that point was because it is important to you women to see a masculine man in your life. It is also important to us that we see a feminine woman in our life. That's why I made the statement that how our lens are used, because we don't want to make any accusation, correct? We don't want to make any accusation that, hey, you too masculine, you too challenging. And so it's our lens. And the question becomes, where do we get our lens from? And then how do we take those lens and view your behavior of how you're acting? This is why I wanted to define what it looks like. Now, there was great points made, but I think when we're talking about different men, and we're not monolithical, there's different men. Some men like other men. Some men like a woman that's hard. We got different men in all kinds of ways. But when we're talking about masculinity, we're talking about men's disposition. We're talking about what a man may fear or feel intimidated with when his woman. So I give you an example. Somebody mentioned the word competition when they mentioned about jobs. It's not so much as the job. I want to say it's the competition. When we are in competition with each other, we don't work.
Nope.
In other words, we don't bond when we're in competition. And what I'm trying to always define to everyone is that we're different. We each hold different roles. There's a chemical in the woman's brain that's called oxytocin that is released. It's a hormone. Men also have it. But guess what? Women release this chemical 10 times more than men. Y'all should go look up Dr. Jewel Pookrum on this study here. So women release oxytocin 10 times more than men. A woman can release oxytocin on the first sight of a man she likes and adore. Automatically, she releases it. There's another word for this word, oxytocin. It's called bonding pair. It is the same chemical that bonds you and your child together. This is why when men can easily walk away from their child or from a woman he has sex with because he never created the release of oxytocin to create a bond with her. That's why he can bounce around to different women. If a woman allows him to have sex too early before he produces it, he may never produce it at all. But if the woman hold chastity and hold back, and he still chases her, he will begin to produce oxytocin in his brain for her, and it will become an attachment. So this is why I'm trying to get this description, because we have a like of what we're liking that makes us comfortable. Specifically, masculine men love and will submit to a feminine woman because feminine energy rules masculine energy only if you are understanding that feminine energy within yourself. But if you switch over to the masculine side of you, which you have 10 to 20% of, you will offset the man in your space. Here's something that Queen mentioned that I'm going to put it in a word. It's called cortisol. Cortisol is also a chemical that it releases when you having fear. Fear is a chemical hormone that releases from your brain when you have fear of lack or whatever fear it comes from. It is a necessary chemical to protect ourselves. But did you know that when women release cortisol, it lowers her estrogen? If it lowers her estrogen, guess what? Her testosterone picks up.
She's mad.
So now she's showing masculine traits because she's been beat down. This is why when we're talking about this country, not comparing to other countries where they are getting along and they're not having these issues that we're talking about, because the women in this country have been beat down so much that you have produced so much cortisone into your body and diminish your estrogen that maybe unknowing to you, you have lost some feminine energy that we're looking for as masculine men. That's possible. Am I right? Okay. Y'all with me?
I'm with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think when we make this definition,
I don't agree with that.
I want to hear some disagreement.
Go ahead, Queen. Tell us.
I'm listening.
Talk to us, Queen.
The reason why, and that's a very scientific. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Neuroscience. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a very actual and factual of what happens to us. And I understand what he's saying scientifically. The part that I did not hear is that also those situations can be created by our environment. So maybe he was alluding to when he say, well, women, we've been beat
Mm-hmm.
down so much, so now our testosterone levels raise up. And when you say define masculinity versus femininity, I have to understand that this whole beginning of this type of discussion, it didn't even start with us. But somebody picked up the ball and ran with it, and then it's used as a divisive tool that we would be sitting here having a conversation about femininity versus masculinity instead of what caused this divide. How did our chemical imbalances begin to
Mm-hmm.
shift? What situations created that? Because now I'm talking about accountability. Because if we don't understand what has happened to us, why have our chemical imbalances been created? We've been victims of chemical warfare since the beginning of us even coming over here, beginning on what they fed us when they start feeding us hog guts and grits. That was the beginning of the chemical warfare and how our brains operate. So scientifically, yes, brother Yah is right on point. But when he say define femininity versus masculinity, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't hold the origin of it accountable for what has happened. Why the situation even began.
Well, Queen,
Here's
Queen,
the
There's a wobble
Queen.
in the universe.
here's the here's the
Everybody has
here's the,
a wobble in their nature.
here's where we will get off track if we don't stay focused. This is why I'm mentioning how we define it based upon masculine. The problem is masculine. The word masculinity is the problem, and that's what we're trying to discuss. We're not trying to discuss how we got there because we can go on and have psychologists here forever on that discussion. I want to
And I think we know.
to how we define it to where men see it in the women today and say that's too much. And where's the balance is what we discussing.
Well,
If we begin to go, like I said last week, if we the first show, if we begin to be talking about slavery and we go back to the 16 and 1800s, then we have to try to rationalize how we came together as a family after slavery and begin to unite and have a proper life system, which is family. Reese. So I came up in the 60s. And so I've seen a different trace of Black people then and Black people today. And it has nothing to do with slavery. And this is why I don't want to go there. I want to remain in the accountability of where we are now. And so this is why I wanted to define what we're looking at when it comes to how we look at masculine women. And for men view, why do we feel intimidated when we still over masculine woman? That's why I wanted the definition of it so that we can move forward to then the why. Why is the later? Let's identify it first, because I don't think we identify what is a masculine woman that makes a man feel intimidated.
I think that's
So
the level of
let's
self-awareness that everybody has to look at within themselves
so
of why a man would feel intimidated
Mhm.
by a woman
okay,
that's
so
operating in her masculine.
that's feminine.
okay, so as we talk about defining that, let's go ahead and continue the round robin. Brother Diego, what do you define as too masculine?
There you go.
Okay, so let's get to it. All right. So I think that Mr. Yah was on point, in my opinion, when he asked the ladies what they look for, masculine and feminine, meaning that the women, to me, they get to know if they see something that's too feminine in a man, right? They can call that out. Mr. Yah is telling the men that, saying in the opposite that men should be typically the ones that can kind of call out and define what we see as too masculine in a woman. Now, me personally, I don't think it has all to do with like Mr. Walker said about economics. I agree to that to an extent, but I've met people who come from different social economic backgrounds, and I've seen different types of women. Even if they have no job, a lot of money, or whatever, they kind of sometimes have like a masculine energy to them. Now, I think that men and women both have masculine and feminine, but just to get to the point, me personally, I have never dated a masculine woman, so it's kind of I don't have an input on dating one, but I have definitely been in rooms with women that to me act very masculine to men. I see women act masculine to each other as well. But what I would say is too masculine, just to get to my point and give it over to Mr. Walker and someone else, is women that are that to me feel like they're in competition with men and everybody because men naturally are competitive, right? In sports and everything else. And I see women that are extremely competitive, meaning that they're competitive against everybody in the room. They're trying to push to get the last words. They have an aggressive personality. I think that's defined as masculine, right? I don't think it has anything to do with economics more than it has to do with a personality trait. And maybe perhaps sometimes people what they had been modeled in their own household. I came from a two-parent home. I watched my parents kind of have the role-based relationship where my dad and the men around me were extremely masculine. They were forward thinkers, pretty aggressive men, and the women kind of were a lot more softer in nature. So I would say with women that are not so soft, I would think men consider that masculine. So I'll move on to someone else.
Brother Leonard Walker, as we do the round robin. Thank you, Brother Diego. Brother Leonard Walker, you talk a lot as a member of the Truth Be Told show. You talk a lot about the family, all right, and also when it comes to our history, History Untold 400 is part of your professional guys as well. So what is too masculine in a woman?
For me, what's too masculine in a woman is a woman that does not allow or resist a man's masculinity, a man's natural masculinity. And I'll give you an example of that. Okay. My wife, when we were dating, um, one of the things she did, she was in a car accident. Okay. And she was all right. She was in a car accident and we were dating. We had just started dating. And one of the things she did was she called me and told me she was in a car accident. All right. Um, Immediately for me as a man, all right, one of the things that is within my DNA is this damsel in distress signal. All right. As a man, a woman that is in need of help automatically triggers something within me to say, I've got to go and help her, or I've got to see about her. I got to make sure she's okay. All right. That is part of being a man to me. Okay. Is that damsel in distress type, scenario. And I don't know if she did it on purpose or whatever. She said, she tells me, say, well, I just called you because you was on my mind. And I say, hey, let me give him a call. Right. So to me, that allowed me to activate the man, the masculinity in me. All right. Now, my ex-wife, okay. My ex-wife, on the other hand, she was feminine, okay. She, hips, curves, physical, everything. She was not loud, she's all of these types of things. But one of the things that she did is whenever we tried to do something, she was like, okay, we're a 50-50 partnership. You can't leave me out. You can't do this. You can't do that. If we went to buy a car, and the car salesman was speaking to me as the man, she wanted to interject, all right, and wanted to interrupt. No, it's my decision too. See, so I'm like, sweetheart, listen, trust me enough to say, this is not just my decision, this is our decision. Okay. Trust me enough to say, as a man, I'm going to take you in consideration with any decision that we make, as a married couple, right? She would never do that. So she was always in competition, always trying to, not so much outshine me, but make her light as strong as my light in some type of way.
Mm.
And I was like, we don't have to do this. All right. Is I got you. I'm going to make sure you as my wife, all right, are going to be heard and taken care of and seen. Okay. And I know that you can do it. I know that you can do it. You're more than capable of doing it. All right. But let me as a man be proud enough to say, hey, listen, you know what? That's my wife right there. She got it going on. You know, she's an intelligent black woman. She's this, she's that, she's so and so. You know, let me be the one to shine. Kind of like, you know, we can compare, we can, you know, argue about Barack Obama. But one thing that I do admire about him is Barack Obama always held up Michelle Obama. Always, you know, in public, he was like, that's the first lady right there. Y'all clap your hands. All right. Put your hands together for the first lady. All right. That's somebody important. Okay. This is what men like to do with their women. Hey, that's my woman right there. Put your hands together. That's somebody important in my life. And when a woman does not allow a man to do these types of things, to me, that is a masculine trait. Right. So that's what I got to say about it.
Okay. Can I come in right here? Because I just
absolutely you can. Let me jump in there real quick with a little bit of that.
Okay.
I agree with all the brothers, and you know, one of the things I want to talk about later is how a masculine man can come into the mix with an overly masculine woman and soften that masculinity, or damper that masculinity, and help her move into more of her femininity. So you know, we'll get into that later though. But Miss Moore, because one of the things I wanted to do as well was I wanted to ask, you know, you all the same question as to what you see as too much masculinity in women. But go right ahead, Miss Moore, and maybe you can touch on that as we round robin as well.
So one of the things, first of all, I love everything you said, Brother Leonard, as far as, because what the theme that I took out of there was trust, right?
Right.
And I feel like that is at the crux of our problems with each other. Even when we get past,
Right.
Queen is absolutely right about, you know, the historical content of this conversation, which is way important, more important than we even giving it credit for. But I would say that even after that, on past, you know, welfare, on past all this, is now we got a society where Black women and Black women do not trust each other, right? Or women and men, we don't trust each other. And so if I'm dealing with a man who is not a good decision maker, which would be an issue, because men equate being a man to just innately having leadership skills, right? And a lot of men have not been built up. They haven't built up those skills of leadership, decision making over time. And even the ability to allow a woman to let you lead. You know what? I do trust him to go out and buy this car because I know he's going to get a car that's reliable. He's going to make sure that the payment is fair. He's going to do that. We are watching men in this society as women go out and overspend, overdo, lie, cheat, manipulate, beat, talk crazy to. No, I'm not respecting you, my guy. And that's what y'all need to understand, that if I cannot trust you, I cannot respect you.
But is that a personal experience versus the whole of men? Because I wouldn't say. I mean, I you know, I count on my fingers, but I can't imagine that you dated all men, right?
No, but what I'm not telling you just my experience. It's not based on personal experience. One, I see a lot of men and women in therapy. I have a lot of female and male friends. I have family who I'm watching relationship dynamics constantly. So I'm not going on this just, I mean, when we're thinking about economic leadership, spiritual leadership, there's, you know, that's not happening the way it should be in our communities for those reasons that Queen had put out there earlier. But it's almost like that despite all of these things that have happened, it's on the woman to Make sure that she do everything she needs to do, and then she needs to submit to a man. What kind of man? What kind masculinity and who you are as a man, like who you are as a person, it still matters who you are as an individual, how you treat people, right? So it's like we're going by like masculine traits. Yes, I want a strong man. Yes, I want a man who's a leader. Yes, but does his leadership have to make me feel like I'm nothing? Does his leadership have to
Oh,
or his
okay. Oh, right there, right there, right there. Does his leadership make you feel like you're nothing? When Leonard was talking about his example, um, that's kind of one of the things that jumped in my head is, does the competition piece come from a woman thinking that a man being a leader is lessening her leadership,
no.
or is that a problem with
What do you mean?
with understanding roles
No, I'm
Is
talking
and
it
about the way
submission,
leadership
or
is delivered, the way you are, the way that men are, or the masculine traits. Because the issue isn't masculinity, it's toxic masculinity.
Well, it's like that conversation. It's that quote I've seen about even narcissists, and not just saying all men are narcissists. No, I don't think that. But it says with narcissists, it says they have they want the authority of a king, but the accountability of a toddler. Like you're operating on this low vibrational mindset, but then you want me to king you when you're not even operating in your rightful place. And that's just the way, like she said, and that's spiritually, financially, leading a household, or just out here running around, willy nilly and not really, toxic masculinity, not really like being a self-aware masculine. I think that's why I went to the word self-aware is men want this authority, but like, are you really operating in your kingship when it comes to your family, your woman, your children, your God, your spirituality, your decision making, the way you move about in this earth, the way you make decisions? Like, that's how I take it.
I want to counter something about what she just said.
okay. So
You have to click on the screen. I'll let you
and
finish doing what you're doing on the screen.
yeah, but I just wanted to, and I just want to let y'all know, I post this in the comments. So for anybody watching, you can click this link that you see in the comments, and you can check out this article. It's interesting conversation, and maybe we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But Brother Diego, go right ahead.
Okay. Did you sure you want to finish whatever you were talking about on the screen there? All right. Okay. So
you want me to go into it?
No, I can go ahead, because I'm only going to take a second. So just yesterday, I was having a similar conversation. What the sister was just talking about, Miss Joan, and I had a couple of men. It was a group of us, right? It was men of every different group. It was a couple Arabic dudes, white guys, me, and a few other guys. We were talking about this topic, similar to what she just said about women saying men want to have a leadership role, but they're not, in a lot of women's eyes, not reaching or leading like a true king should lead, but they want keys to the kingdom. However, what I have noticed personally from the conversations with just men, right? Men that are either not in our community, or some of the men that are Black, but they don't live in this country, or they migrated here. To be quite honest with you, I really don't personally think some of these other men in the other groups operate much different than a lot of Black men in America. I see them doing a lot of the same similarities. However, I still see them have a different role-based dynamics in their home, right? They're usually not doing, to me, a lot of things different than I've seen Black husbands doing in their Black homes. Yet I still see a lot more men that are Black men complaining about the masculinity than I see men of other groups. So what I was trying to say, and it's posing it back to the women, are either the women in other groups are just, I guess, suppressed or idiots, or they have been, I guess, modeled some kind of behaviors in their households. Because I just literally had this conversation with like 5 different men. It was like 6 of us total yesterday. And
Well, I think it's the cultural dynamics are different, and that's so when you're talking about other countries of men and things like that, like we have been indoctrinated, and that is what Queen is talking about. The women and the men have been indoctrinated to have certain attitudes and dispositions towards each other. That is an American, specific American thing that we're talking about when you're talking about the indoctrination of white supremacy. And even in this conversation, I feel like there's a supremacy factor that exists in it, in that even now it almost feels like when even when Leonard, brother Leonard, was talking about the workforce and the competition, it almost seems like that black men have started to view black women the way that the white men views the threat of black success. That if so, it's like they've basically have those attitudes have started to that they've been beaten down with have started to trickle down into them kind of beating us down, are seeing us as competition instead of seeing us as allies.
Or an asset. And that's why I say it's about self-awareness, because with men, if you're self-aware, you're not going to be insecure of a woman that is prospering or that is living in her light and living to her highest potential. So that's why I say everything works for everybody else. To me, that's a self-aware thing. If a woman being masculine or moving up the corporate ladder or making moves in this world, maybe more than the moves that you're making, is an inadequacy thing on the male's part. And why should women be...
I agree with her, but I don't think anybody answered what I asked a moment ago.
I didn't hear you.
Well, I want to say I agree with Joni as well, and we'll get back to you, Diego. But I want to say I agree with Joni. But in all honesty, I don't believe that people are complaining about the financial dynamics of a woman moving up the ladder. I think where some of the complaining is, well, I mean, she just notated that. So I think where some of the complaining is the inability, as a woman moves up those financial ladders, the inability to still submit to a masculine man. You know what I mean? I think in some cases it becomes an area of competition with women as they move up that ladder. Maybe, I don't know, and maybe that's where the complaint is hey, flip that switch when you come home, or flip that switch when you leave the workforce, so you can operate in your very powerful, dominant, feminine, traits versus your masculine, which is what gets you up the ladder.
I think
and women would love to come home to a man that is secure in his woman's masculinity or in her success, to where she can come home and operate in a feminine manner and not feel like she's being in competition with or scrutinized, or just throwing the burdens on a woman because they feel inadequate or they're not in their rightful place in their life.
I think Mrs. Moore was closer to what I was saying. I don't think men, and I can't speak for all men, I'm just going by the men I meet. I don't really think it's a financial thing, really, because I meet a lot of men who are with women who make money and men that's women that don't make money. And I'm saying the men I've met, they have the complaint, no matter if the woman makes money or not, that sometimes they're not, like Mr. Walker was saying, he's met one woman that she just, no matter what, she wasn't willing to stop being competitive with him, period. And it had nothing to do with the finances of her making more money or not. This is what me and the gentleman were talking about. I think it has to do with Ms. Moore was saying, like more of a trust thing. Do you trust their man or not? And do they respect their man or not? Like she was saying, does that man derive that from his woman?
And some of that respect, because when a man is not getting that respect that he wants, or the being able to get that submission that he wants, sometimes it's not about the woman. Sometimes it's about the man and how he's moving, and that's what I was trying to explain. And that's why I kind of did talk about the supremacy thing, because I think that the goal becomes to control or dominate. And a man in his rightful place of masculinity is going to he's going to get the submission. He's going to be able to get what he wants. He's going to be able to command it without demanding it, is what I'm trying to say.
I have a question for Ms. Moore. I have a question for Ms. Moore. And any woman can answer this, but it's to what you're saying. To what I was explaining, the men I was talking to yesterday, there was only one guy that was foreign. The rest of the guys, they're all from the United States. But what I'm saying to you is that a lot of them were saying that even in their own households, right, they have a lot more of the role-based dynamics. What I'm saying to you, they were not black men. One of them was, but the rest of them were maybe white men and one Latino guy and an Arabic guy. What I'm saying is they look at it like they're modeled to do role-based home living in their homes. So they don't have a lot of these questions around it. So what I'm saying is the women that they are experiencing in their cultures, I mean, is that in their race or whatever you want to call it, are they just suppressed, or you think this has to do with, you know,
the women are suppressed in other cultures? That's the thing, is in a lot of other cultures, the women are suppressed, even financially.
So the white women?
Huh?
It's mean like the white women too here in the United States?
I wouldn't say that white women are they make less than men in the same roles in America. Women are still oppressed in certain ways, even with men. But I'm saying that the culture dynamic between the white man has always been in his place, his rightful place. The black man has been displaced. That is where the problem lies in the American roles, you know, because they have been displaced. There has been systems put in place to block their success in ways that made the woman have to step up and be a provider and be this and be that. So right, when I have to be the provider, the homemaker, the this, the that, and then a person is coming in and saying, no, you do what I say, or what I'm like, bro.
I got a question. Well, and I wasn't saying that it was more of a financial thing. I'm thinking more it's the way that a woman moves. That I feel like why is the way that a woman moves, while the way a woman moves, the way that, like she said, we have to be the providers. I came from a woman that pretty much handled the household, and she was more of like the breadwinner and the just decision maker and made things happen. So that's why that's the example I seen. So maybe that's why I operate in the way that I do. But for me, that's more of a positive. It's a survival thing. Now, when I get married or when I do find a mate, I would want a man that would appreciate that, the fact that I do have a brain and that I can make decisions without asking him for every input on anything. But certain things that need collaboration will need collaboration. But I think it's just finding the balance. And I think sometimes when you have a strong mind or you move in a more direct manner with certain men, that can be looked as intimidating or as you're doing too much. And I think that's just everybody's preference.
Sister Joan, can I ask you a question?
Hey, real quick, Diego. Real quick, Diego.
And you know what? That's also a thing with language, because back in the day, when your mother was single and she raised herself out through school and through college, it was, my mother was a strong black woman.
Right.
The language has gone from black woman to black woman. Your grandmother and your great grandmothers who were absent of husbands had to do the same exact thing as single women are doing today. It's a play on words. Was your grandmother masculine because she went out there and worked the job and plowed the fields and fed y'all and had to teach you how to fight and teach you what to do as a man as best she could?
She was strong with a C.
And she was a strong black woman. But now you're masculine, because a masculine to me is a woman who has an identity crisis, that doesn't know she's a woman, and she walks around looking like a man, trying to talk like a man, and trying to dress like a man. That's somebody with an identity crisis. That's masculine. But God's experience have brought them down different avenues. So you can't tell me I'm masculine because I went my own car and I raised my children by myself and I did what I had to do on the side to make ends meet. And you come in here with failed opportunities, missed opportunities, lack of equality, and you call me masculine because I did what I had to do. No, I'm not masculine. I'm a survivor. I'm a woman. I'm the mother of the universe.
Diego, what was the question we wanted to ask?
Civilization. If not for the woman, we wouldn't even be amazing.
There we go.
Diego, what was the question you wanted to ask? You wanted to finish asking.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I want to first thank the sisters for giving their feedback on all that stuff. That was some pretty deep stuff that I can see when someone says someone has to do a lot of things, right? Especially if it was a single mom, the grandmother thing. But my question is that the last statement that was raised by the sister Jones, she was saying like, embrace that woman if she's doing things or whatever. So one of the men that I talked to yesterday, the white guy, his name was Devin. Well, he's a construction worker and his wife is a doctor. She makes a lot more money than him, yet she still is the one that cooks the meals every day. So what I'm saying is, I don't think it's really. I think him and his wife, they both probably grew up being modeled that role of what I guess what they would consider feminine, masculine roles. Because even the gentleman that I spoke to yesterday, I was considering like, hey, oh well, maybe he's the breadwinner and he's the guy that does this, but he's not. Yet he still has the kings to the castle, and his wife still kind of still falls in and does like a lot of the feminine traits that he's looking for in a wife. So I don't really think it has anything to do with money. What I was going to ask is do a lot of women feel as a woman, because I'm not a woman, that if you are out here being aggressive and trying to be a breadwinner because maybe you are sometimes alone, maybe is that something to do with that dynamic once you meet a man and you're like, hey, he might feel a certain way or there's some kind of competitive like tug of war going on? I'm just curious.
I think that those attitudes are a lot of times more on the men towards the women than it is us towards them. But I could be wrong, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of times I don't hear women complaining about men being feminine as far as who they are. It's more about them being displaced in their roles. And I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, if I was married, am I gonna still probably cook more or do that kind of stuff? Yeah, but when I'm thinking more about our attitudes and beliefs that we hold against each other, about those things. Because I always even been with men who could cook, so I like to have a man that can cook and loves cooking. Because I don't want to always do it, especially if we're both working. And if you want to come and cook something, thank you. I want to eat tonight. Like that's nothing wrong with that. And I think that sometimes there is that men think it's feminine for a man to know how to cook or for him to do things to help with the children, or when really all of that is learning how to be a partner.
Well, yes, that's the part I was going to get to, the selflessness. I think in a relationship, a lot of time women not overexert ourselves, but we give more in the relationship to our men in the household to make sure that it's fully functioning and going the way that it needs to. Whereas a lot of men these days are very selfish. They think about themselves first before they think about the children or the families. So a lot of the times it's not a balance. It's not even. And so that can cause insecurities too. Or it can just cause frustration in a dynamic when the women feel like we're giving our all or putting the most into it and it's not being reciprocated, or it's not being truly treasured and valued. The amount of work that women do on a daily basis, and a man contributing just certain little things, even if it's just taking the clothes out the dryer and folding them up, just the minimal things. It's almost like a chauvinistic thing almost, with some men, I'm this man and I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to be vulnerable and I'm not going to, be submissive or ask my woman, what she needs or this and that. It's more about they think about themselves. And when they get into a relationship with the woman, their first priority or thought process is what can she do for me versus what can I do to make my house go smoothly or to lighten her load, when 9 times out of 10, the woman is doing the most to make the household go around.
Let me first say, y'all say a lot of men, you're really not speaking for a lot of men. You're speaking for a small fraction. So I begin to ask, who are you meeting? Who are you meeting in your totality? Because that's not most of the men, I guarantee you. But I have a question for Ms. Moore on the point of white supremacy. Can you show me in yourself where white supremacy affected your opinion of men right now today? Can you show me what in your own mind that deals with white supremacy that affected you and what you view of men?
That was the question.
I feel like that white supremacy has affected the way I view men, because I feel like men lack pride in our community. And so to me, if you will sell drugs to come up, if you kill your community to come up, if you will do things that destroy your standing in the community, there are things that has been influenced by white supremacy because of the lack of opportunity. So men, what I'm saying is men not being in their rightful place. And I know y'all say y'all know and all these successful men, and I'm pretty sure maybe it is in Louisville, but maybe it's where we are, because I don't see it. And I'm not just, this is not just me being enmeshed in my family and I'm across the bridge in Indiana. I'm over here. I'm not seeing Black men like really step up. I see a lot of women raising their kids by themselves, and dudes coming to get their kids only on the weekends. That's
and also men thinking that they can have several women and that they can really be a whole man in each household. You can't. If you're out here spreading yourself with several women, you never can. I mean,
Gotcha.
So for me, I would just say it's just about positioning, and that's not just an economic thing. That's spiritually, Black men have been beat down. They're not in their rightful place, and they're not. A lot of them aren't fit right now for leadership, and that it doesn't even matter about being in a marriage or whatever. Because when we're talking about even a lot of people, there are men who expect women to be submissive to them who are not married to them. That's a mental thing.
Right. So where I'm trying to get to is when you mention white supremacy in description of men today and how it affects us from coming together. I'm asking you specifically, where in white supremacy stopped you from having a successful relationship because it affected your view of men today? Can you point that out?
Well, I have a personal situation. I had a daughter whose father got 2 degrees and was never able to get a job in his field, right? After he did all that schooling. Guess who got the brunt of his insecurity as I moved through school and done what I needed to do for myself? If you want a personal scenario, that's a great one. I was able to move up a lot easier than he was, even though he had 2 degrees before I had 1. Okay.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I understand that dynamics. What I'm talking about is your personal view towards men because of this situation, meaning that what we're describing white supremacy. So again, example, the white man has made me look at the woman as being submissive and you should bow down to my feet. And this has become supremacy, so it affects me, so therefore I can't have a great relationship with you, and I can correct that. You see, what I'm trying to get to is that is this: when I mention the word oxytocin, I'm talking about a chemical, a hormone in the brain. It had nothing to do with white people. It has nothing to do with you creating a chemical that comes out of your brain that you don't have control of. So when I mention that, somehow we just roll right over that subject here when I mention oxytocin and cortisol.
Because we all have that. We all produce
I'm trying to describe something. I'm trying to describe a chemical that affects your behavior, not the white man.
It's affecting child's behavior, is what I'm saying. As a result of white supremacy.
Right. I never.
That's why y'all move in fear more than we do.
No, that's incorrect. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to talk to you about is this chemical called oxytocin. The way you look at men, and the lack of our oxytocin, the way we look at women. This is nature. This has nothing to do with the white man and white supremacy. This is what I'm trying to get to.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I think the question the way you posed the question about white supremacy, I did give you the example. It can only be nature
if you're in your natural element.
What I'm trying to
let's do this. Let's let people finish their comment. Because we might realize that they're touching on exactly what we're talking about.
So if you want to know what truly has changed or impacted the way I view men, personally, it would be probably growing up without a father. It would probably be experiencing sexual abuse. It will probably be experience men as being predatory since I was a child. Not even before my major incidents of sex abuse, but I'm talking about even as a child, how men glare at you, how men sexualize you, and how that continues even as so women grow up feeling like that sex is all that men want.
So right there, LaQuisha, right there. Let's let John finish that statement, because one of the things he did talk about earlier was how women have been beat down Therefore, certain levels of chemicals raise up in their brain to create more masculine energy. So go ahead, John, with the neuroscience talk.
That's exactly what I was trying to get to, because I'm trying to ease in here is this. When we start talking about white supremacy, then you can't fix yourself. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It is just like this. If I was denied a job and I walked away saying that they didn't hire me because I'm black, I can't fix me not being black. But if I realized he didn't hire me because my pants was hanging down, I wasn't speaking correctly, I didn't have a good enough degree, I can fix those things. This is why I don't want to discuss in this room about white supremacy have anything to do with your accountability now. You get my point? This is why I mentioned about cortisol, a chemical that you can control. It's a hormone. If you learn about it, you can stop the chemical flow that makes you attracted to men that ain't no good to you. You get it? That ain't got nothing to do with slavery
I
and
got
white
you.
supremacy.
I got you. I understand that.
The other piece is about cortisol, a chemical that is released that's a stress hormone. It stops you from growing. It stops you from thinking about the future. It stops you from creating, and it puts you in defense mode. It keeps you there all the time, right? That right there lowers women's estrogen. Therefore, it affects her view, how she sees things through her lens. I don't see, we're wasting time if we're going to talk about this subject of this balance. If we keep going to the slavery piece, because now we got to bring in archaeologists and people who can talk about, and that's a waste of time. I want to get to this. There's a concept. There is what is called a concept. Everyone has a self-concept. Do you know you have a self-concept of the way you look, the way you speak, the way you eat? You have a self-concept. These things you created yourself. How you want to look in the mirror before you step out the door. These are self-concept. It has nothing to do with no one else but you, of how you see yourself. Guess what? When you raise your self-concept, you raise your value. Check that out. The more you believe in your self-concept, your value raise. So listen to this, and this is psychology. If you have a self-concept of your economics, and it's right here, maybe mediocre, maybe 10,000, 50,000 a month or a year, right? And that's your self-concept. That's what you used to making every year. All of a sudden, you win $1 million in a lottery. Your self-concept is going to make you spend that money so much and give it away to where it comes down to where you are comfortable in your self-concept, because your self-concept is what you put out there. See, you're only a mirror of yourself. I don't say nothing about the slavery piece. When you look out in the world, what you see is a reflection of your inside, the man you meet, the relationship you in, and all that you're going through. So we're wasting the time if we're not talking about our concept of ourselves. First of all, what do we think of ourselves and how we view each other is the issue. When I was trying to speak on the point about masculinity, Diego made the point that I was trying to make, is that the way we view you women, we looking for a feminine woman and a feminine woman, and we run away from women that's got too much masculine. Well, check this out. You women move towards a masculine man, and you move away from feminine men. See, it's the same thing. But when you view it as me talking about putting the burden on you. No, this is twofold. We got to understand, just like I mentioned, when we're talking about this, you need to protect yourself. I totally agree. I taught my daughter how to fight. I taught my daughter how to use a weapon. My daughter's a black belt. She know how to use knives. But at the same time, I taught her how to defend herself. But here's a good question I asked last week. If you're standing by the door with your gun and you've been used to doing it because you're in the hood and everybody's trying to knock down your door, you got to keep your guards up. That's the cortisol that's released in your body, protection. When you do get a man, do you release the burden and allow him to protect and let it go? That's feminine. That's all I'm saying. Feminine ain't based upon you knowing how to fight. You know that. You've been in karate before. Feminine ain't based on you knowing how to protect yourself. No, feminine and masculine energy is only challenged for a woman when she uses her masculine energy against a man, just like what Leonard was talking about. If I come home and my woman is still at the door with the gun, and I grab the gun from her, and she still, then she is actually exercising a competition against her man, and that's masculine. Just like what he said, when If y'all never had a man, have y'all ever had a man tell y'all, you ain't wearing that, don't wear that, take that off. You ain't going out the house looking like that. Have you ever had a man tell you that? Have you ever had a man tell you what you're wearing is too provocative, don't go out? And did you listen to him? Because
Well, I
if
did.
you did not listen to him, then that is the problem. That's a masculine problem, because you all of a sudden will believe he can't tell you what to do.
Can I say something?
But actually, he is trying to protect you. You
Please,
learn
Queen.
that. You learn
Please, Queen.
that. You learn that.
Okay, but let me say,
Well,
let me say this, please.
hold on. Let's
Mr.
let
Yah,
John. Hold on. Let's let John finish his last point. And as I've reminded y'all 2 weeks ago, we do have a chat, a private chat that I'm posting who's next, this, that, and the other in there, and nobody's paying attention to. So let's do that. Let's look at this chat. Everybody has that option from a cell phone to a computer to jump in that chat. So go right ahead, John. Please finish your last point, and then Queen will jump in next.
I got it.
Yeah. And so the bottom line, that was an identity of masculine energy. You can go ahead, Queen.
Queen, are you there?
No,
So I
she's
can truly appreciate all of the scientific expertise and exegesis that Brother John has offered. Again, you are talking about the chemical reaction in individual's brain. So if I am a child who my first experience with a man was at years old, in me, you really expect for me to look at a man when I am age appropriate to be attracted to a man, to look at has not had that horrific experience. I'm supposed to look at a man the same way that I'm not in the house with my father, and I did not have that positive interaction relationship with my father. Am I supposed to go out and my first relationship with a man is supposed to be the same as someone who come up out of a household with a so-called two parent relationship and a healthy relationship with her father? And the answer is absolutely not, because the brain are as unique as every individual. Your experiences, your diet, your medical condition can affect all kinds of chemicals in your brain. So when it comes to a woman in this society under this topic being masculine, no, she's not masculine. The language has changed. She's gone from strong to being independent. Now she's masculine. She's masculine because has there ever in her life been an example? Because if you take a poll today and ask how many women grew up in the house with their father,
Yeah. You actually Queen,
of
you're
the
making John's
households are being ran by
point.
Black women. 78% of Black households being ran by women, put it like that. Where their sons and their daughters supposed to get that first experience of having a positive interaction with a man that will make the chemicals in their brain function in a way to say, I have
All right, Queen, you're very, very
to
choppy.
leave me to
Um,
make
your your
healthy
your internet is
decisions
very, very
for
choppy.
me.
Um, and if we could maybe work on that, because the internet is very choppy. But what I'm seeing here is that Queen is actually, in a sense, kind of making John's point, because again, now we're talking about how do you attract those same type of men, to see those same type of men in your life as you grow up and get older. So yes, something traumatic happened, okay, and that's understood. All right. But is the idea to take that trauma and wreak havoc on the rest of the world for the rest of your life, right? And then step back and say, oh, hold on, I'm this way because of this that happened to me before. Or should you be doing some work on that? I know
Yeah.
plenty of women that they've dealt with trauma, and then they hey, I know some that's still in therapy. They dealt with trauma when they were kids, and they're still in therapy. But guess what? They have a the way that they react to the world is much better, because they're working on themselves, and it's a constant thing. So fear that trauma caused or what have you, they're working on themselves. And what John is talking about is digging deeper into knowledge of self. Everybody talks about that knowledge of self, knowledge of self. Guess what? Let's dig some deep. Let's dig real deep, and let's start talking about, okay, if it has to do with a chemical imbalance, and if it's the white man that gave us the food that made this chemical imbalance, and if we know that, we know that, then shouldn't we be working more towards fixing that? Like, isn't that the idea? Isn't that the move at that point? And I want to hear from somebody that we haven't heard much from. And she knows I'm about to call on her. It's pretty brown skin. Haven't heard much from you right now. I know you probably, like myself, had a wonderful hanging out with friends night and stuff like that. And now you up in the mix with rocking with it. So we appreciate it, because I'm doing the same thing. But one of the things I can speak to when I look around, okay, grew up in a 2-parent household, pretty brown skin, 2-parent household. Leonard, John, Diego. I don't know if that makes a difference. I know about them. I don't know about everybody, but I don't know if that makes a difference or not. But pretty brown skin, when you talk about what is being said, or when you hear what is being said about this, John, there was a question that you posed. What was that question? It was. I know it was way back, but I'd like to get Pretty Brown Skin's take on that question that you posed. Or hey, pose another one. But I want to give her something to speak to as we talk about this.
Well, I forgot the question. Actually, I asked several questions. I think most of the women had answered it. So, but my piece again is trying to get to the psychology behind it all, and that's where I'm at. So, but anyway, Pretty Brown Skin, come on, jump on in here and give us some of that feedback.
Do you feel Pretty Brown Skin that the white man and slavery and all of that is a problem for you today, as far as being more in touch with your femininity and allowing your true feminine power to exude into this world? Did the white man do it?
You know what? If we're gonna be all the way honest, I don't really feel like it was slavery as much as I feel like it was the crack epidemic and welfare. I feel like that played a huge part into the roles of the Black woman and the Black man in today's society, because the crack epidemic, they put a lot of Black men in prison, killed a lot of Black men, and then welfare pulled a lot of Black men out of the home. So now we have a situation where the Black woman is saying, I don't need you, I can do this on my own. And we had to step up and we had to man up. Me personally, I can't relate to that because I don't consider myself a masculine woman, but it's I see it a lot. I see it a lot in with my girlfriends. I have a girlfriend now, her child's father was incarcerated and he got out, and they tried to make the family thing work. And because, he's half working and he's not doing what she thinks that he should be doing around the home. Now she's bossing him around and talking to him like she's running things, like she's bucking up on him. And, and I had to pull her to the side like, sis, this is not how you treat a man. This is not how you treat your man. And that's one thing that I see. Y'all got to excuse me. I had way too much party last night.
So listen.
Don Julio and champagne. I'm just trying to tell
you. So here's a question there within what you're saying. Because when you tell that story right there, I think about a lot of things. First thing I think of is, okay, this brother, who was this brother? Was he, what got him in prison? And then I'm starting to think, okay, if it was something that was, the norm, drugs,
So it wasn't the norm. So here's the story. I guess I can tell it because I'm not saying any names. So I guess I can tell the story. So he was incarcerated because he was a crack baby. His mom was on crack. He was born addicted to crack. So he doesn't have all of his mental faculties. And he was accused of sleeping with an underage girl and didn't have the means to have a good attorney. So he used a public defender and he did 5 years.
Okay, so right then and there,
he's on the sex offender registry. It's hard for him to get work, and so she's looking at him like, "Well, go get a job." Well, it's hard for him to get a job. He's really not supposed to be living in the home with her and her child because the child they share together.
So she knew that.
She knew that
before getting into the relationship with him.
Correct. She knew that before she brought him back in.
So okay, she knew that before she brought him back in, and obviously before he went away, they were together, and I guess I don't know whether she knew it before he went away or whatever. The thing is, how did she attract that type of man to make that type of mistake? And so that kind of goes back to what John is saying is, there's chemical reactions happening in the brain that we're not focusing on that has a lot to do with why we attract this type or that type of person. And so then it's like, okay, we attract this type of person and then we get mad at them because they're that way. But
well, you know what? I feel like even the most high value or high functioning women or men can attract manipulators. So a lot of the times people can really put on a false persona of who they are for a long time. So it's more about self-awareness. I go back to that because it's so real about knowing who you are, knowing who you are getting with, and knowing if you ain't even in a position to be in a relationship. Do I have an open mind? Am I willing to compromise? Am I willing to see things from another point of view? Or am I so stuck in my way of thinking that I think that this is how it's supposed to be? And if I don't find a woman or a man that falls under the guidelines of what it is that I expect or my order, then it's a problem. When it's really give and take in each situation. And even with the whole 2-parent household conversation, I feel like that means nothing because nobody's 2-parent household example is the same as the other. So it doesn't matter if there's 2 parents living in the household, 2 incomes coming in that gave you a great stable life. If your father, your mother was emotionally unavailable, or you witnessed your father abusing your mother, or you witnessed your mother depressed most of her life, or your father because of the dynamics, it's going to leave a different type of impression and also shape you into the person that you are. And it's going to be different from each person. That doesn't mean that your way of thinking is wrong. That's just your experience.
Right. You can
come from statistics
and still be raised.
You can come from dysfunction.
Exactly. And you can come from a 1-parent household and have the best life ever.
Well, look at Obama. He never even knew who his father was, and he was the president. So that is also an excuse why not knowing who your father is or not having a male example does not mean that you're going to be a feminine man or a single woman can't raise.
Wait a minute. Obama did know who his father was, and he had a relationship with him before he went away.
I'm talking about when he was growing up.
He didn't have his father.
Yeah, after
he became an adult man and was already cognitive of
who
he was.
But Obama
shaped him into the man that he was.
But Obama still had a father figure, and his grandfather was
That's my point.
Yeah.
His grandfather
Exactly.
with him his whole life.
That's my point. He
Yeah,
had a
so
father
for-
figure.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
now-
And so,
a lot of people were
when you
raised by
say
grandparents
say
too.
things like it doesn't matter. Okay, again, I think I think I said this last show. Could we all agree that more times than not, having two parents in the household matters versus not? Right? I mean, we can agree because statistics don't lie. You know, men lie,
I
women
would
lie,
say it
numbers don't. Right?
matters. I think it does matter, and I don't even know if it's so called in the household as much as it's in their life. Because
Exactly.
I
Which we
talked
just
about
made
the
that point
last
with
time.
Obama and his grandfather.
Yeah, I think that my son has not been in the household with his dad since he was 9, but his dad has been in his life his whole life. He's at football games. He's at whatever. We co-parent. You know what I mean? We take credit with each other even at the games. Just my son, that's my son. So it's like it's not a problem. I think the problem is children growing up without two parents, because it does when you grow up without a father, and I'm case example number 2,033,000, okay, that you are left unprotected. And I think that you don't learn, I have not always known how to treat men. Like literally, I haven't. And to some extent will fight a man when I was younger because I knew I could fight. So
And
I
that
do
takes
think
work on yourself to even admit what you're admitting right now.
Let's explore that. Let's explore that a little
Keep going.
more. I'm glad you mentioned that because
Yes.
that's the piece
Yes.
that women need to hear what you just mentioned.
And so, like, I think that the things that I went through definitely influenced the way that I saw men, and the way that men, like, to me, the value of a man is not so much in his masculinity, but it's in his ability to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And so, I don't like being with men who are like try to be controlling and stuff. And there's a difference. There's a difference between a man being a leader and a man. There's a difference between power and control.
And
a leader and a boss.
You have power without. You can not control what's happening right here, but still have the power in that situation. And I think that that's one thing. So, and when you look at all these women around and many women who've experienced certain things, what does it rise up in you when you've been victimized? So, like, even just as women who've been beaten, women who've been sexually abused, women who have been manipulated and used. So it does change the way that you view men. And so when the man comes in, that's why I remember a guy telling me, like, a man doesn't want to hear about a woman a trauma or whatever. You better know her trauma. You need to know her trauma.
Absolutely.
You need to know what she needs. You need to know who she is as a person and why she's that way. And I think that's where men, you all aren't as vulnerable. You don't tell your traumas as much. Y'all hold a lot of things in. And so sometimes there's a barrier for intimacy. That's where the balance, there's no the ability to be vulnerable enough, because intimacy involves vulnerability. Me knowing all about you, you knowing all about me. It is not just a sexual thing. And I think that that's where we don't have the protection of the other societies, because women are definitely preyed upon in this country in a major way. And not to say women don't get raped in other societies and stuff, but it does happen over here at an alarming rate.
Absolutely.
And so, and then even men being physically and sexually abused is a big thing, and how they may see themselves in their manhood. So it's a lot of different factors. But I think, like, what I do agree with you about, John, is definitely the self-concept. And just like Joni's saying about self-awareness, being able to take responsibility and accountability for where you are. That is something that I had to learn how to do as a woman.
Where you are today.
That you can be a victim in one situation and be a perpetrator in another.
Correct.
Right?
And one of my main concerns was raising my daughter was the fact that I did not want her abused, touched, or misused, because I knew the statistics out here of young girls being molested or without, having that protection. But let me ask you this. You mentioned something that's very, very important, and I don't want to just skip over that. You mentioned that because you didn't have a father, you didn't know how to treat a man. Let me ask you a question. Where did you learn how to treat a man? If you didn't have that father figure that you mentioned, where did you actually learn it? Because this is the question that women need to answer. Did you learn it from a book? Did you learn it from watching a movie? Where did you learn about a men and how to treat men?
Well, I've had a unique life anyway that don't fall into the like a real category. It's just an odd life. So my upbringing is like I said, my dad was not in my life, so I was raised by my mother up until 12, and I saw how my mom treated men, but my mother was with abusive men. So only thing that mattered to my mother when we were younger about a man is how much money he had. So my mother was more, she didn't care about a man past his pockets for real. And I think that was due to her abuses too. And then after of course I went through, if y'all look on my page today, y'all see my story because I told it last night. But I went through a 3-year period where I lived with my karate teacher and his wife. And that was a crazy dysfunctional, sexually abusive relationship. And then coming out of that, I moved into a home of a pastor and his wife, very healthy people. I joke all the time with people that I feel like I lived with the Huxtables for 2 years. So I did get to come around a healthy man who loved me, who taught me so when you were talking about clothing, he was the first man to tell me, hey, because of course I did karate and stuff. So I had a body and I would want to wear little bitty shirts and little bitty shorts. And he was the man that said, hey, he said, daughter, I need you to know that the way you dress attracts a certain type of attention. And you need to make sure that the type of attention you're attracting is the type of attention you want. So he let me know that, because I wasn't thinking about that. This is hot and this is a cute outfit,
Yeah.
And this is even after I had been through the stuff, because I felt like the clothes didn't matter. Okay. I didn't wear short shorts when I went through it. Right. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. People like, oh, she got on this and that. It don't matter. Predators, they see everything. They got imagination that goes beyond what you have on.
Absolutely.
So I didn't care about clothes. I love fashion, but he let me know, you beautiful, but you don't want to attract certain type of attention. You don't want to be preyed upon. That's what he was essentially saying. So that was my introduction. My first introduction to a healthy man who was a good person was. And to be honest with you, trying to look for that is hard because he was spiritually developed. And that is what a lot of us are missing. That's not just men, that's men and women. There's a spiritual development that has been stunted in us. And so that's why the self-awareness is missing. That's why the empathy for others is missing. That's why the self-concept is missing and low. So that's what I'm saying is so even when I've picked partners, right? I will say that the people I have my kids by, I trust them with my children. You know what I mean? I trust them as men with that kind of stuff. So it's like, that's the part that I feel secure in. So John, in that attraction too, the attraction piece, when you were saying what you attracted to or what you attract to you, I feel like because of my experiences, I had a good sense of discernment. So I was able to see through that kind of stuff. But maybe the little love stuff muddled me on the other stuff.
Well, that's great. Great story. I think we needed to hear that because that's the piece where that regardless if it's the father, the uncle, whoever it is, that piece right there is so important to young girls, knowing what a man looks like and how to identify him, because there's a difference in a male and a man. There's a difference. Man is a description and identity. A male just have penis, balls, and a prostate. And there's a difference. You got a lot of males grown up in men bodies, but they're not men. And that part right there. But I'm glad you mentioned that piece there because that was important. Everyone needed to hear.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's good stuff. Miss Queen, it looks like you have something to say. There, I think your mic was muted. Go right ahead. Or there you go.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I had to get on my phone because I don't know what was wrong with my computer. So I don't know if y'all can see me or not. Because
You can see
Yes, we
you.
can.
Yes.
okay. Well, John, y'all asked a question, um, various questions relating to uh, experiences and how to interact with men and things of that nature. I just want to kind of turn the tables a little bit and ask, how do you know as a man when you're actually a man instead of just being a male?
Okay, so I can answer that
I
one.
can
I'm
answer
more
that
than
too.
glad to answer that one. Okay, so now
And
there's
wait a
three.
minute, wait. Let me finish. And the reason why I want to ask, I'm gonna tell you the reason why I want to ask that question is because I think that there is accountability on both sides. However, I think men have a very profound responsibility in a relationship. And I'm gonna say this, and I don't mean to be vulgar, but I remember my great aunt saying this: "A woman can't be no whore if she ain't got no tricks."
That's right.
There you go.
So,
Right.
so I want to know, when when do you define yourself as a man, and a man that is worthy of a good woman?
Gotcha. Okay, so Diego, I think he's got to go, but I'm going to start, man. When I'm going to answer that, but I'm gonna let Diego go because he's got to leave. But I'm gonna answer that the way you started. When you started by saying women set the tone. All right, women set the tone. But I'm going to answer that man part. But Diego, I think you got something to say before you got to leave in a few minutes.
I appreciate that, and I want to give everybody their props. Sister Maura Joni and the other two sisters, you guys have been dropping some good game. So what I wanted to say, and I just want to kind of say this, and I'll give it back. That's a great question that she just asked. How does a man know? And then I think she threw the word in there, worthy, and things like that, right? Quite often, some men have been properly groomed by other men who are respectable men that have provided in their communities with their own families. So some men have been groomed that way. Now I don't agree just because a man's physically a man, that just means that he's the one that's supposed to be a leader if he hasn't been groomed to be a leader. I think one of the sisters earlier kind of mentioned sometimes some of the men haven't been groomed properly, but yet they want the responsibility. And I do think it's a big responsibility to take on if you're going to take that responsibility to lead a family and be a man of a household and things of that nature. However, you guys said something just a second ago about where people learn some of these things. I'm a true believer in believing in how things are modeled. Now, somebody kind of mentioned it earlier that it just depends on, it's all situational if you was raised with two parents or not. However, I'm going to be honest with you and be transparent as possible. Me personally, I have went out and I've dated a lot of women, and I would say the ones I've been in serious relationships with, they've had a father in their life, right? Including the woman that I was married to. Um, I personally have noticed very quickly when I'm around a woman who I feel that didn't have a man in her life, even if her father left, but he still stayed. Because a lot of times, women I have personally met that grew up with a father figure, they are quick to stand back and they want me to lead. When I've met women who didn't, they're the ones that have personally told me, you kind of a little controlling, typically, is what I've seen. And it could do it a lot with Ms. Moore said earlier about the trust and her encounters herself and what other women go through. So I'll end it on this and say this. Me personally, I feel like if you're going to be a man that leads, you really should be a man that I think that you've actually been through some things, or at least been groomed by the elderly men, the elders in your family and community, where they've actually built you up. Because you haven't been modeled to be a leader. I mean, you're just sitting out pretending. You got imposter syndrome, and you're trying to tell someone to do you yourself. You still haven't learned any of the features and mechanics to be a man or in of a household. So I really think a lot of it has to do with the modeling that you get and your first experiences as a child, what you actually experienced growing up. So I'll pass it to Brother John and whoever wants to follow me. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Joe.
Well, I just wanted to say with something that Diego just said, goes back to a question that John put out there that women should be asking a man, even in dating, and that is who one of the questions that you ask is who mentors him. You know, and this is the thing. It's funny because John, myself, and Pretty Brown Skin were on the phone. She's admitted that she's moving differently in her dating life these days, and she's focused more so on being very intentional. And she's added that, for instance, among some other things that we've talked about, as one of her questions in dating men. And in a lot of cases, she's getting to the red flags a lot quicker, which allows her to cut people off a lot quicker so that she doesn't end up wasting time with someone that, is not worth her time. So I just kind of wanted to point that out real quick because as Diego said that, then that is a very good thing that women should be asking men is, hey, who is your mentor? Who do you follow? Who mentors you? These are questions to ask. But go ahead, John. As we jump back into that.
Yeah, and I tell you, and just to jump on that before I get into this identity. So yeah, one of the greatest things you can ask a brother that's interested in you, Queens, is to ask him, where did he learn how to be a man, and where did he learn how to treat a woman? And so the first question is, where did you learn how to be a man? And so if he pauses, then that means he's never been asked that question before, obviously, and he may have to think about it. Oh well, because it should be immediate. My father, right? Okay, so let me give his definition here. And so I can only give you my experience. That's all I can. I can't give you somebody else's experience. I'm gonna give you my experience of how I became a man and how I know that I'm a man. Number one is that I had a great mother and I had a great father. And so my father was my hero. So I really looked up to my father, really adored my mother. In fact, I look for women that specifically look like or geared towards what my mother was, because that becomes your first image. In fact, if on this chat, my life partner always watches my shows and she's always commenting somewhere in here. So, I'm always, there she is right there. So I'm always speaking in light of women and my relationship with women. Now, men, what I learned how to be a man was from my father. And the three characteristic traits that men have that women look for naturally is, one is being able to survive. Number one characteristic of a man is his ability to survive in this environment. Regardless of what the situation is, he's able to survive. Number two, he's able to provide. The number two characteristic of a man is that he is able to provide. Just because he can survive don't mean he's able to provide, and that makes it a little different, meaning that that's what you are looking for. Remember, what I'm describing as a man is what women are naturally looking for. I'm not describing a man that's out in the woods by himself. I'm describing one that can be defined, because let me explain this before I go to the third one, is that you can find the quality of a man based on what his kids say about him or what his wife say about him. That's where you'll find the quality of a man, right? So the third quality is him having guidance. Those are the three major qualities that define a man, not a boy. It defines a man. So now, when we were in the jungle or back in the days in Africa, we had certain rituals that men do for boys to take
jungle.
Excuse me.
You said jungle.
Yeah, so to take the men from one stage and then train them to how to be men, right? From boys. So what they would do, they would take the boys who came to a certain age, and they will all take them out to hunt, to how to build a house, to how to cut down a tree, right? Jungle, yeah. So the one that came home with the wildebeest or the beast on his back, that was the one that the sisters was looking for. Why is that? Because he proved that he can survive and he will provide. Right? Those are the characteristics. So when elder men take boys off into their teachings, the job is to take them to the next level of being a man, to be attracted to who? To attract who? Not to attract another man, to attract another woman. My manhood is defined by the woman I'm with, and every man is. You can't define, a man can't feel defined as a man by another man. He can only feel defined by a man as a woman. As a woman describe his differences from her, right? That makes the difference of the three characteristics that a woman are naturally looking for her protection and her guidance, and one that's willing to provide for her.
So
Okay.
for me, Queen, let me jump on this one.
Now let the brothers answer that question.
Yep.
Okay.
So for me, where did I learn manhood from? Obviously, I learned it from my father. I actually learned how to be a man from my father and how not to be a man from my father. It was a dual lesson. So, but I knew I was a man when I could take care of myself. Okay, that's when I knew I was a man. Just like what John was saying, is I had the ability to survive and take care of myself. Now, my manhood was tested when I got married. You want to test your manhood? Get married, okay, or have a child. Okay, so that's when my manhood was tested. Okay, and which that's a good thing, because in to quote Brother Imwalimu Baruti's book, he has a book called Asafo, Guide to Manhood. All right, he said the purpose of a boy is to become a man. The purpose of a man is to become a husband. The purpose of a husband is to become a father. The purpose of a father is to become an elder. Okay, all in these steps. So manhood, okay, is not just something that you just arrive there. It's a destination. Oh, I'm in manhood now. No, it's an ongoing process. Okay, always. So you always are an initiate going into the next phase, the next level, the next step, the next this. Now, I consider myself in the eldership initiation process right now, right? So I'm not quite an elder yet, but I'm in that initiation process. But it was because I had all of these other steps of manhood. And don't get it twisted. I've not been a perfect man. Our mistakes in life is what make us. Okay, this is how we learn, right? So I look at my first marriage. My first marriage was there were good parts, but it ultimately failed. We did not stay married. Okay, so was I going to be a victim of a failed marriage and say I'll never get married again? No. I learned from that and said, okay, how can I do this marriage thing better? All right, this is what men do, right? And this is what me as a man is because when I look at my life and I look at my mistakes and I look at how I travel and traverse through this life, I say, okay, what can I learn? How can I be better? How can I improve? How can I go to the next level? How can I go to the next phase? Right? So that's a part of growth, and that's a part of manhood, womanhood too. But when we specifically speak of manhood, but to make my point, learn my manhood from my father, learn how not to be a man from my father, and have my manhood tested by marriage and fatherhood. And my manhood is continuously being tested, through my initiation process.
There you go. Joe, you with me?
All right. I think Joe didn't.
I think he's frozen.
Joe is frozen, and Joe has blurred out too.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Queen,
you on mute.
Queen, you on mute. Yeah.
Oh,
there we go.
I just think one of the things that when Brother John Yah was talking about the three things that a woman looks for in a man, one of the things that maybe you want to add to the list is a woman looks for security. And I don't mean financial security or provisional, but a woman looks for a man who's going to take care of her heart. And unlike maybe everybody else on the panel, I had the privilege of being raised by my father. I didn't meet my mother till I was 12. Not to mention that I have 23 biological brothers that are, that were and are still in my life. So the examination of a diverse body of men is what I was able to examine in order to make a determination on what I would, um, or who I would select to be a partner in my life. But when I mentioned at the beginning about the science of mating, white people, European people, they mate from the neck up, and they say we mate from the neck down. Um, that is something that has been taught to us. The one thing that we fail to develop within our relationships is friendship. We are naturally supposed to be physically attracted to each other. That's why we have the eyesight. We have the eyesight. We know if we want a tall man, a short man, a light skinned man, a dark skinned man, the particular texture of hair. There are certain things that as individuals we are attracted to. But in the forming of a relationship, we seem to always skip a step. And that step is friendship. Because as your friend, you are more likely to be more open, more vulnerable with me as a friend, rather than someone who is in a relationship with you that has certain expectations of you. Because, see, when you're in courtship, it's like lights, action, camera, lights, camera, action. And you only do that and act a certain way sometimes for so long, depending on how the relationship develops along the way. But in friendship, you get to see all facets. You see the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, how he deals with things, how he manages his anger. You get to see spirituality or lack thereof it. You get to see his growth and development. And we have a tendency to jump into relationships because of an emotional aspect. I naturally want to be in a relationship with a man, but the relationship has multi levels. And that's why a lot of times we fail. I'm not going to marry a man unless he's my absolute best friend. I'm not going to sleep with you with my eyes closed next to you unless you're my best friend. I'm not going to reproduce you into the future by giving you babies unless you're my best friend. And that way the relationship can survive. And so what I hear is that a lot of people evidently have feel as though it's been a competition. A relationship should never be a competition. That's supposed to be your partner, your teammate. It's not a competition. So people who feel that way, is something going on internally that no other individual can fix, because you have to be self-satisfied. It's not for my job to make you feel like a man. It's not your job to make me feel like a woman. It's my job to make me feel and be and act as the woman I am as an individual, and vice versa. So I don't want this to turn into something ugly where we are competing against one another when we got everything in this country, in this world to fight for, to fight against. And I'd be damned if I'm going to sit up here and condone us fighting against each other over some stuff like femininity and masculinity. No, we are individuals that have had different experiences, and that can bring about certain behaviors that are required for us to survive. Point blank, period. So I think every woman who identifies herself as a full-fledged woman is just that. I think her life experiences have shaped her, just like your life experiences have shaped you. There are some men who are feminine acting, but they're not homosexual.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think we have to give individualism a chance here.
Yeah.
and understand that we as a people, we have so much against us that we cannot afford at any time to be against one another.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you there. And again, as I stated earlier about what you said from the very beginning, that women set the tone. Understand that part, I totally agree with. So when you define it a man, only a woman can define what a man is
Mm-hmm.
based on her image of what she sees, and it's the opposite of her, not the same of her, because she sets the tone. I think we even said it before that, as I agree with you, if women lower their skirt and zip up their blouse, men will follow, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
hunters. Y'all will set the tone, and we won't be. It would make it harder for us to get women, and we would have to shape up. Meaning, if all women were looking for a college degree guy, and we just can't get none unless we got a college degree, guess what we gonna do? We gonna
Go to school.
degree, because the bottom line, we're chasing you. And we'll do whatever it is you set for us. But if you easy, if we can have sex with you in a week or a month, and we ain't got to prove nothing, we ain't got to build you no house, we ain't got to buy you a $10,000 ring or something to where it's proven that we can mate with you, then what tone are you setting? Where's your standard? I'm talking to general women in general. Where's your standard? What is it worth for a man to get in bed with you? What do you got to prove? What does he got to go through to get there?
You gotta
And
be worthy.
that becomes the standard that
But
y'all.
I think that sometimes I understand that, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's problem.
But I do think that I do have a problem with sex being the thing that is always focused on, like for women, and for men, we're looking, because if sex was the only thing that y'all was looking for, that wouldn't, people have sex and still don't make it. They don't work out as husband and wife.
Correct.
And so that's the thing. I think sometimes when I hear, well, you guys, why is it that men don't have to exercise self-control? Why is it on the woman to keep the man sexually in control of himself? Y'all are not void of responsibility when it comes to being in control. And that's where we have kind of a rape culture that we have to get out of. And we have to quit thinking that it's the woman's responsibility to tame the man's sexual desires, his sexuality, and all of that. It has to change. You guys need to look for wives instead of looking for ass.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what though? But that's against a man's nature. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I'm just telling you straight up. It's against a man's nature to have one woman.
That's against a
Wait,
male's nature. That's against a
wait,
male's nature.
wait,
Because a
wait.
male,
Let me finish. Let me finish, sister. No, let me finish, sister. Please. It's against a man's nature to have one woman. Historically, you can see that. However, I'm not saying that I agree with polygamy. I'm not saying that men should not be accountable sexually. What I'm saying is that when she asks the question, why is it the woman's responsibility to keep the man under, sexual control? It's not that it's your responsibility, but it's your responsibility to understand his nature. So therefore, in order for you to understand his sexual nature, you got to have the sexual conversation. And the sexual conversation is that he doesn't want the same thing all the time, because the whole world, the whole female world is your competition. And if you think I'm lying, you go back in history from the beginning of time, whatever religion you are, whether you are atheist, you can go back to the beginning of time, and God has never ordained one woman to a man, a God ordained marriage, but has never historically been one woman. So now that you require, or now that the churches now require, since the Bible has been rewritten, that a woman has one man, then what do you do when that man takes that vow and says that he will forsake all others and will only be unto you? Just because they rewrote the Bible, they did not rewrite nature. The reason why they took Lilith out the Bible, and if you don't know who she is, she was Adam's first wife. The reason why they took Lilith out the Bible, because Lilith was in opposition of God, because Adam was granted more than one woman. Why was Adam granted more than one woman? Because the law said, be fruitful and multiply. And there are different characteristics in your womb, my womb, the next woman's womb, that will produce a life that is set for a different purpose. But they took all of that out of the Bible. And the original Hebrew Bible that was written is in Egypt. And I had the blessed opportunity to have it translated to me. That's how I learned who Lilith was. They took her out the Bible because they didn't want women to be in opposition against men's nature.
Well,
and Lilith is the woman that gave birth to the entire world. Everybody that was born before Noah came through the lineage of this woman. Now, I'm sorry. It's not the man. It's not a man's nature to have one woman.
I don't care if it's their nature or not. I'm not dealing with that. That's why I ain't married. I'm not gonna be the woman where you got 10 other women and I'm over here being.
No, sis. It's not 10 other women. It's not 10 other women. It's the sexual nature of a man. In other words, how many times have you said? Like I was married for 27 years. How many times have you said? Not tonight. How many times has it been said? I'm not going to ask anybody personally. How many times has it been said, oh, that's just some freak nasty shit I ain't going to do? Or how many times has it been that, oh, I'm angry at you because of this, that, and the other. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to withhold sex. Let me tell you something.
I'm not that girl.
Every person, man, woman, and child, every person is born with 3 drives. God gave you 3. Mm-hmm. He gave you hunger, he gave you thirst, and he gave you sex. Those are the 3 drives. And the reason why, because your womb is so sacred. You are the only giver of life. And that is why God did not ordain, and I'm sorry, he did not ordain a man's nature. I didn't say a man's nature to one woman. When the rules were changed within our spiritual scriptures, then we created all this chaos. But it was never that way. Solomon had 700 wives. Moses had 300 wives.
Abraham had 300 sex partners. That's not wives.
No. See, that's not necessarily the case, because a wife is a responsible. No, you have to understand. A wife is a responsibility. Okay, so when a man takes on the responsibility of a woman, he's caring for that woman. Now, as far as her holding her chastity and never getting none, I don't know nothing about that. But the wife is the responsibility of a man. If I marry a man, I'm taking on his name. I'm your responsibility. I'm your responsibility, but I have a responsibility within. That's right, because in Islam, the Holy Quran says that you marry as many women as you can afford, limiting you to 4 because you cannot treat them.
I don't care.
No, I said a responsibility, because sister, in the time of war, when men went to war and women were left with their children, other men had to step up and take responsibility. So to protect women from not being victimized by every other man, a man would take on as many wives as he could afford for the sake of the children, for the sake of lives. So, and for the protection of the woman, so that she would not be exposed to every other man that did not die in the war. That was the whole purpose. But what I'm saying in this day and time is that you have to have an open, honest conversation about sexual expectations with your mate.
And I think
Because if you don't, and if you too fickle about him being honest about what he wants sexually, then you're opening the door for infidelity. Not because he's not accountable, not because he doesn't have a responsibility sexually. It's because you're asking him to go against the grain of the very nature in which he was created.
well, I
And
think
you go back and you study the history of man, from any angle. I don't care from what book it is. If you go back to the beginning of man, beginning of civilization, you look at how those families were formed. You look at how those villages were built. You had men. How did they become kings? They became kings because they carved out a piece of land. They claimed women. They made babies and they created villages. This is how you and I are here.
I get what you're saying about. I'm sorry, I was just gonna be because you could be sexually everything to a man, and he might still go cheat or whatever. Because saying women denying sex or whatever, I'm a woman that when I'm in a relationship, I don't deny sex at all because I'm a sexual person. So not to say a sexual person. How do I say it? Whatever. Anyway, I like sex. Okay, I've come to have a very healthy relationship with sex. Okay, so if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm gonna be open. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, whatever they want to do. That's it. But to think that a woman, even so, whether or not what I'm saying is whether or not you're a sexual beast in the bedroom and make it available every time is not going to be a determining factor of whether or not a man cheats.
No, I didn't say that. The men are gonna cheat if that's what they desire to do. But a lot of times there's this thing called dissatisfaction, and it's not necessarily about the sex. Sometimes it could be about the attitude, the temperament, the household, it could be anything.
This is where I say, where's the friendship?
So here's the
you got to develop it.
Here's a piece that I wanted to add to that. First of all, two things here. It does deal with character and what you're looking for. Now, number one, that men should have discipline. The number one thing is have discipline. If a man if the man is lacking discipline from his word is his bond. If he tells that woman he don't want another, he's not going to have another. He should stick to that bond and maintain his discipline. Number two, in the Holy Quran, as I've been informing Imam, I've dealt with the subject at giving the Juma, the Kupa, about having more than one wife. Now the Quran provides and says that yes, you can have 3 wives, but one is best for you if you but knew.
If all you know. Yes.
This is an actual quote. One is best for you if you but knew the truth about women. One is best. Unless you handle all of them and treat them all equal, men today can't treat all these women equal. And that's
especially not said, honey.
Right. So we're not.
They had superpowers back then.
They can't treat 2 women equal.
Well, back then they had superpowers. Come on now.
Right, but we're not going to put it on the nature of men. We're not going to put it on his nature unless we're talking about a man that does not have discipline, which is the key reason why our father's in play. Let me give you an example. A boy grows up, he don't have a father. His penis get on hard. Who did he go to and say, hey, Dad, what the hell is this? He can't go to his mama. If he do, wrong answer. And so if he doesn't go to it, now he'll start poking anything because he's out of control and this is in control. The root of it is that this controls all of this here. And you need to say no or yes. But let me end with this very important story that comes out of the Bible and the Quran. The story of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. It's a very dope story that I did a talk on as being an imam in the relationship between women and men, as we was discussing about the woman holding the door with the gun. So King Solomon, as we know, Queen Sheba, as we know, had ruled the land for many years before King Solomon came along. When King Solomon came along and he took her throne, right? And he cast her out. He revamped the whole palace, the whole country. He revamped it. Then he invited her back. And what she saw was everything was the castle was made of marble, so shiny that you could see a reflection off the floor. So she got on the floor and she was twirling and dancing with her dress, according to the description inside this. So she was twirling around with her dress, and she looked down and at that point submitted to King Solomon. What is it that you think she saw when she looked down?
His penis?
Right. No, what did she No. She looked down at her dress floating up. What she did not see was penis. She didn't see balls. That means that she didn't belong in that position and rule. When a right man comes along, you relinquish the power. It doesn't mean you can't be a ruler. It doesn't mean you can't be the queen running the land. But when the right man comes along, you relinquish the power. And that's when she realized, she's twirling her dress and realized she ain't got the balls. She submitted to Solomon. That's the story.
Which is quite interesting, because as I spoke on it last week, that's the same thing that when it comes to my father and my stepmother, I mean, she didn't look down and you know see no balls and that, you know, that wasn't part of it, but she relinquished the power. She gave him the keys because he showed himself true and proven as a man that she could trust, as a man that she could put her trust in, put her love in, and he was going to take care of her. He was going to hold her and take care of things. So even though as a doctor, she comes to the table making plenty of money, she still relinquished those keys, and there was no competition anymore because of that right there. So, you know, and I think that's important. That's kind of what we touched on earlier as well, when we say, hey, I don't think men are concerned about women going out here making a bunch of money or making more money than them. I think it's more of a situation of, hey, do you have enough feminine energy, and do I have enough masculine energy to where when we meet and we come together, that you can relinquish some of that power, some of that masculine power, and allow me to dwell in my masculine energy as you fall into your feminine energy. And no,
so we're talking about gender roles.
When I say fall, I'm not saying fall and go beneath, because I know how people just take stuff and be like, oh, he said fall. What you trying to say? We got to look up to you? No, I'm just saying to dwell within your feminine energy as I exude this masculine energy. And I got us both. I got us. You know what I mean? And you can like falling into my arms. You know what I mean? Like that's the best example.
That's gender roles, that's love, that's trust, that's the building and development of a relationship.
Which goes back to, how do you pick a man? How do you pick a woman? That goes back into, okay, can women who have made mistakes with men look back and say, you know what, I didn't look at whether or not he could survive. He was just cute and he had them eyes. You know what I mean? I didn't look back at whether or not he could provide. He was just cute and he had them eyes. And man, when I let him hit that thing, man, his stroke was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Did he have guidance? You know, plenty of us could look back at these relationships and say, you know what? let me take some accountability, because when I measure it up to just those three things right there, I was wrong to even get into this relationship, you know? And so with that in mind, now as you move forward, because again, we can't go back and change Master's mind, but as we move forward, we take those tools, we take these tools right here. And if nobody got that, again, I think survive, provide, and guidance are three things, three very important things to look at when it comes to a man. Can he survive? Can he provide? And who is his guidance? Right. So now you can
We're
move
also
forward.
looking for love. Just to throw that out
But
there.
I mean, but Diana Ross, was it Diana Ross that said, "What's love got to do with it"?
No, it was Tina Turner.
Tina Turner.
But
Okay.
here's
Tina Turner said
the other thing. I think a lot of the fallout too is that when relationships don't work, we almost become enemies of one another. And that's
especially
why
in
I
this
say
day and
that
age.
I think that the friendship is so important, because if I'm getting to know you and we keeping it on the friend zone level, right? If I'm getting to know you, and as I'm getting to know you and I'm seeing characteristics that, that just will not suit me, but I'm allowing you to be the individual and the person you are. I'm not trying to change you and mold you and shape you into what I want you to be. I'm letting you be who you are. And if I recognize that in friendship, you're not the man for me, guess what? I can still be your friend and I can move on versus having all these bogus ass relationships, bogus ass situationships. We done laid down, somebody's catching feelings, something feel good to somebody. And then when somebody wants to cut it off because they have expectations that are not being met, now you got an enemy. Now you got somebody want to kick your door in and blow your head off and all this kind of stuff.
And you're
We have
gonna
to
learn.
do better.
You're gonna learn who that man really is.
But
Go
we
ahead
have to
and
do
continue being a
better.
friend. Be a friend to him, and don't give him no pee. You gonna learn.
But
If
we
he
have to
runs
learn
away,
how
guess
to
what?
form. We got to learn how to form better relationships with one another, y'all. I'm talking about universally. I'm talking about community. I'm talking about village. We got to be better to one another. The whole damn world is against us. You know what I'm saying? We on the damn color scale. You got the Caucasians #1, Asians #2. Now they bringing all these Hispanic people in here. They getting loans, cars, houses. We've been here 400 years. We ain't getting nothing. And we at the bottom of the totem pole. We got to learn how to love one another in friendship and in brotherhood. And if we get a relationship out of it, God bless. But if we don't, at least we can be brothers and sisters and family and be united to get something better for ourselves, for our people, for our future.
Absolutely. Listen, this was a great subject. I mean,
absolutely.
I really loved it. Thank you, LaQuisha Moore, Sister Muhammad, and Sister Joni, and I do Diego and Leonard.
Pretty brown skin and
brown skin. It was a great subject.
Brother Walker.
Brother Walker. Yes. As I close out, again, one of my main things is even inside my thesis of writing is dealing with the mindset. And one thing that I learned that I had to overcome was do shadow work and what was going on in my subconscious mind. So I recommend this book right here called Psycho-Cybernetics. It's a dope book. Please don't get afraid of the wording. It sounds intimidating, but it's not. It actually will define, and you will see your trace of your life and why you're doing what you're doing based upon what you're thinking. And lastly, a little pamphlet that I am reading right now, and it says, don't believe everything you think. Okay. Try not to believe, because we're always wrong and find out something later, right? So try to move in that direction. But I think y'all brought some great info to this subject. I appreciate you. Thank you, Queen, for that wisdom you dropped. Appreciate it. Definitely. Thank you again, LaQuisha, for rocking with us again.
Always.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right.
Absolutely.
Peace,
see y'all.
Family. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Wa alaikum salam.
Peace.
Peace.
plant-based herbs and supplements. Whether you're in person or online, use the word tipping for 10% off. Remember, feel better, look great, healthdaddywow.net. Remember, healthdaddywow.net.
You are listening to The Tipping Point Show with your host, Mr. Just Ask Joe, John Yeah. You ready? Streaming live all over social media and on your favorite music and podcast streaming platforms.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Also, check out thetippingpointshow.com. The Tipping Point Show.